Welcome to the Patrick Real Estate Show, where we explore the fascinating world of real estate investing with your host, Patrick Switek. Patrick is a dynamic young entrepreneur and an accomplished real estate investor who's passionate about helping others achieve financial freedom. Each week, we sit down with some of the most inspiring individuals in the real estate industry and delve into their personal journeys, lessons learned, and secrets to their success. Let's dive into this week's episode.
Hey guys, today we're going to have Michael and Nathan on the Patrick Real Estate Show. And they're with Howzit Hostels. And their whole background is starting in the short-term rental world. And they did something that not a lot of short-term rental investors actually do, which is get into the hostel world. So not only do they have the experience from the short-term rental world and understanding hospitality on that realm, but also the fact that they've scaled up into the hostels during COVID time. And they're going to share their story on how they did that, their experiences, and a little bit about what it is running a hostel and what the numbers even look like. So without further ado, Nathan and Michael, welcome to the show.
Yeah, Patrick, thanks for having us on. We're stoked to be here. Thank you.
Heck yeah. So where did this start? Where did this short-term rental journey start for both of you guys? Michael, you said you had a couple short-term rentals. How did you even get into it? What year was it?
Yeah, so I bought my first short-term rental home in 2015. Now, we live in Maui, and so there is a high barrier to entry when it comes to short-term rental homes. There's quite a few condos. There's tons of condos. But when it comes to 3, or in my case, 4-bedroom homes, they're very limited. And in fact, you have to go and apply and get a permit. It's not an easy, straightforward process. There's a lot of hoops you got to jump through. And so I ended up purchasing a home. My wife and I bought it, and it was previously being operated as a vacation rental, but illegally. So I was like, that's interesting. Okay, short-term rental, what's this about? I liked the home. I wanted to live there, but I was curious to know, how does this work as a short-term rental? So that was my introduction to it. So I started doing some research. 2015 was still pretty early on. Airbnb was around, but it wasn't nearly as popular and mainstream as it is now. So I didn't want to do things under the radar. I wanted to do everything above board. So I figured out how to get the permit. I applied for it. It took about a year and a half. It was a process, and it was a risk. You had to invest quite a bit of money to comply with whatever requirements there were. Long story short, we ended up getting that short-term rental home operating, and I was like, dang, this is pretty good. The money's great. Let's get another. And in Maui, you can have one per person. So being married, we put the first one in my name and we put the second one in my wife's name. And we went through the process of doing this all over again. It took about another year. The second property we bought was actually previously owned by Mick Fleetwood. And it's a beautiful property, luxury, 4-bedroom home. The thing just crushes it. I'm giving you a quick summary, but I went from 9 to 5 grind, just more 8 to 7 grind pretty much. It was just long hours, day in, day out, working, hustling. And I was able to position myself out of that through these short-term rental homes. I became financially free with 2 vacation rentals in Maui. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. And so I left my W-2 job and I basically became retired. And that sounds great and all. Hey, I'll just sit on the beach and enjoy life, but it's freaking boring, right? I'm a born hustler. I wanted to work. And so I knew there's some overlapping periods here, but before I left my W-2 job, I was working with Nathan hand in hand. We were colleagues, and I knew that I wanted to partner with him.
Can I ask how you guys met each other?
Yeah.
What's the love story? How'd you guys meet?
Yeah, Nathan, you want to take this?
Yeah, I'll go through this because you jumped right into the short-term rentals, Mike, but I came into that earlier, and Mike's been very driven. Like from the moment that I recruited Mike, he had a vision and he was going to create financial freedom for himself and for his family, and he had a path and he was on it, and he wanted to come work with us so that he could funnel the high upside of sales revenue that we were bringing in to really create freedom for himself. And then he recognized that there were significant margins in the short-term rentals and went that direction, which then provided him freedom. But to rewind and go back, I've been a sales leader here on Maui in timeshare, in resort ownership, and we recognize that there's so many parallels between sales and being an entrepreneur. There's very little difference when you look at mindset that you have to have when you're performance driven and every single thing that you make is based on what you've done and what you've accomplished. There's so many similarities. And so we always looked at building this team as what we do in sales is not about the moment of sales. It's about if we can master this and really dig in and learn what mindset, how it impacts things, in learning how facing adversity and all of the things that you really go and face in that industry, that it would translate into real life. So we were growing a team. We had a massive vision, and we knew we needed the right type of people to go and execute it. And so we started recruiting people because our vision was over and above anything that had ever been done in this industry. And Mike, one of the managers, said, I know this guy. He was here on Maui for a couple of years, but he's back in San Diego. He'd be perfect for this. And so I recruited Mike. I remember the first time I ever talked to him, he was just coming out of a yoga class in San Diego. and I'm like, man, vision up. We're looking for people that will think bigger than they've thought before. And very quickly I recognized, okay, he's driven. He had a plan. At that time, he was like, look, I'm going to purchase, I have a goal to purchase over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, 4 or 5 rental homes in San Diego. I'm after financial freedom. And we're like, all right, this is the right type of cat. Anyway, we hired Mike. He came out, and we both had this passion for real estate. I'd been developing my portfolio. He'd been developing his. And then one thing led to the other. We recognized that in a partnership, when you decide to partner, it's really important to have strengths that maybe fill each other's. So like with Mike's going to have some areas of opportunity that I have strengths in. I have areas of opportunity that Mike has strengths in, and then we have some that overlap. And that's like the perfect partnership because it makes us significantly stronger as two than it does as one. And so we wanted to do something big, and we always knew that. We're like, let's go do something big. And unfortunately, we recognized that short-term rentals were going to be very difficult here to scale because of the challenges that we were facing on Maui. Really difficult, really nearly impossible. That really led us into the next phase of what are we going to do?
Yeah. And Nathan, I want to backtrack a little bit to when you guys decided, okay, Mike's the kind of guy that I want to work with. You do, Nathan, just for the people that are watching the video version, you do have a lot of different words in the back that resemble, I'm assuming, values that you live by. Can you maybe talk a little bit about the things you look for in a partner or somebody to take down this? This is a big goal, and it's a lot of, there has to be a aligned vision, right? So I'm curious, what things were you looking in Mike that made you say, okay, this is somebody I want to work with and continue to work with?
First of all, in working with Mike, I really got to understand what his character was. So character obviously is huge. In whether it's being an entrepreneur, being in a 100% commission-based sales setting, you really see what people are made of. You get to see what they're made of when things are challenging, when it's difficult. You get to see what happens. Number one, in a sales environment, you're looking for integrity. Look, this is a sales environment, and we need to make sure that we're surrounded by people that have, significant character and integrity, because there's always a lot on the line. And so I got to witness that. But you can read the things behind me, and it's like perseverance, sacrifice, persistence, grit, determination, hustle, grind, all of these characteristics that don't have to do with talent. We got to test ourselves and battle together every single day. And so I got to see those things come out. But the other side of it was I really got to see that Mike is really good at building things. He has the ability to focus where I may have a vision of, okay, look, this is what we can do, and I'll break through barriers and take what somebody might say is impossible, and the whole goal is to shift the impossible to not just possible, but turn it into probable. That was always our goal with our visions that we were setting. But Mike was really good at saying, I can take this and really, with laser focus, funnel everything down to what is it going to take to do that? And so I recognize that that's an excellent compliment. When you have vision on one side and you have integration on the other, that's and then high level, like very high level vision and then very high level integration. You combine those two things and then you throw in the character attributes that I was discussing, and we really felt we had a winner.
Wow. So Michael's your integrator to your visionary duo, right? Have you guys read Rocket Fuel by any chance?
We haven't read that book, but I believe it's Traction is his other book, right? Gino
Yeah,
Wickman. Yeah. So
exactly.
we've
Yeah.
read that book, and we do integrate EOS into our business.
Perfect. Yeah, we do the same thing. We found our integrator. It was me and another buddy. We were both visionaries, but very complementary in terms of skill sets. For our management company, we've scaled it to 100 plus units in Joshua Tree, California, but definitely found our integrator, our COO, and she's incredible. She used to be a professional organizer. The attributes that you're resembling with Michael, she has. And she doesn't like being in the limelight. So I'm interested in Michael, the fact that you're more willing to go into limelight and you enjoy that, not just being in the back end. Is that a unique aspect for you? Do you like being
No.
in front of the camera, or
Dude,
that's not
I
natural?
freaking hate this stuff, but I'm doing this because I
Yeah.
know it's important. And no, I'm kidding a little bit. Look,
Yeah.
I don't crave attention, but I'm having to come out of my shell and I'm pushing myself. And what I really do is growth. I crave growth. I always want to see my whole goal with myself is to reach my full potential. And if that means I have to be uncomfortable to do, I'm willing to do it. But no, I'm not like, for me, it's difficult to do public speaking. I get really nervous about it, going on podcasts like this. You know, this is a challenge. We've done a few of them now, and I'm getting a little bit more comfortable, but I am out of my comfort zone for sure.
I would have never thought that you were the integrator. I'll be honest, because you were just on the podcast right away. You were the first one to talk. Nathan was taking the back seat, didn't really say too much in the beginning, and especially in the beginning, we were just chit-chatting before the episode. I wouldn't have guessed. I think you're doing a good job of building that skill set then. So good for you.
Well,
Yeah, you just have a very
remember-
comforting way about you.
Yeah, and remember, it might be a challenge in Mike's mind, but he was number one. He started on our sales team, then became a sales leader, led morning meetings. He's an unbelievable executor. So whatever he's tasked to do, he will go and execute at an extremely high level. And if that means being on camera and creating a relationship or whatever it is, he's going to do it at a really high level. So yeah, you wouldn't know that's the way that he feels, because ultimately it's, dang, bro, you sound awesome. What you say, like, people listen to all of those things. And it's just, people have they sometimes see themselves differently than others do.
I'm starting to like this podcast. I'm starting to feel a little more comfortable. Thanks, guys. This is great. Like, can we do this every day?
Hey, let's do
It's the
it.
truth.
Let's all compliment each other and level each other up. I think a lot of people don't really, it's hard. You don't really get compliments from, I don't know, my girlfriend barely gives me compliments. I know she loves me, but deep down, I'm like, she gives me more shit than she gives me compliments, I feel, at a certain point. I don't know if you guys have significant others that are similar, but, us guys, we got to hype each other up, because who else will? That's what we're doing. But cool. So you guys obviously are a really great partnership, and things really started working out in that retrospect. Now, let's talk about short-term rentals. Not really going to be the best way forward because of regulations. And that's actually a common thing that happens for short-term rental operators across the country, is they run into legal limitations. And really, when you start looking at commercial, and you start seeing how commercial can actually be a better way to scale, especially in boutique hotels, or I do short-term rental property management companies. You have equitable value in that business, and you're going off of the net or the EBITDA multiple or whatever the case may be. Therefore, valuing that asset more than sales-based approach for a short-term rental, like single-family home, for instance. So there's a lot more upward mobility with that. And I think maybe you guys saw the same thing, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So I'll say one thing, and then I want to turn it over to Nathan, because he'll do a great job of explaining how we got to where we're at. But I love vacation rentals, and if I could buy 100 vacation rentals right now, I would. And the reason why I love them so much is because they cash flow so well. Mm-hmm. The thing about commercial real estate in general, it's where you can build tremendous equity. And the pitfall of short-term rentals is they cash flow well, but you're not able to manufacture equity oftentimes because the way that they're valued is through the comparative valuation method of residential real estate. And in commercial, if you increase the net income to the property, then you can increase the valuation and ultimately the exit and the equity that you have in that property. So what we found with hostels is that it's like a happy marriage between commercial real estate and short-term rentals. And so I'll pass it over to Nathan how we got started in hostels, if that's the direction you want to go, Patrick. But
Yeah,
I just wanted to give you
absolutely.
that insight. I love short-term rentals. It's just for us, we found it was challenging to scale.
Yeah, and it really is a perfect transition because
Well, can I ask you before,
yeah.
Nathan, real quick, why didn't you guys end up, if that was the case, right, the limitations of regulations, why didn't you guys just go remote, right? Buy something in Wisconsin or across the country and just scale the portfolio that way?
Yeah, number one, we wanted to scale. I think at that time, remember, this was earlier, this was 2015. There wasn't a lot of information out there. We are self-educate, we'll go dig in and really self-education is huge to us. And so I think that was a little bit outside of our comfort zone. And we were really looking specific to the Hawaiian Islands and to Maui. And that's what Mike's experience, that's where his experience was. Like, this thing was like happening here on Maui. And it's because he bought these on Maui, the margins were significant. And this is where the transition occurred, where we're like, look, we want to do something big. We can't grow here. And so we started going through this educational process in multifamily. And we're like, let's go create multifamily company where we go and we purchase apartment buildings, value add, create equity, syndicate, like we had this goal. But the challenge was when we got done with this thing and we started making our first calls, we're like, we couldn't help but compare the margins to what Mike was doing with the short-term rentals. So it was almost depressing. Man, I missed the boat. This sucks. We can't scale this thing. We're stuck. And now we're stuck with apartment buildings and the margins suck. And so it was like, seriously, we were going through this and we're like, man, this is such a damper. But look, we're like, hey, it is what it is. Stoked for Mike that he was able to capitalize. Now let's go do our thing. And again, we wanted to stay closer to home to start. That was really important for us. So the first property that we made a call on, we made this call and we're like, all right, it was an apartment building here in Maui, but in the comments, it had mentioned something about part of it had been being run as a hostel. And we're like, and look, we created a relationship with the real estate agent. The property ended up being in escrow, so we never even looked at it. But when we inquired about this hostel, like it was this thought of like, hostel, what? Number one, I didn't even know what a hostel was, never stayed in a hostel in my life. Mike had some experience back when he was coming out of college, but the wheels started spinning. And this guy was like, when he realized, Mike and I always joke, the real estate agent was Saul Goodman. Better call Saul. He was a character. It was like on the other line, it was like he was spinning it up. And so he planted the seed, he got the wheels turning, and we started looking at this and going, wait a minute. It's next to impossible for two guys that are getting their start to go and purchase a hotel or resort here in Hawaii. The cost of the real estate you're investing $50 million at a minimum for a small little resort. So that's not where we were at. But here was this opportunity where there was accessible real estate prices, properly zoned, where we could take this. I think of the short-term rental as if you take that to long-term rental, a single-family long-term rental home, and then you look at an apartment building, we started going, wait a minute, this is like the short-term rental business model, but scaled up into a hostel. And so it started clicking. We started looking into it. We started going and looking at there were a few other hostels here on the island that were just, frankly, they were run down, nasty. They were just like, but look at what they're pumping out. We started looking at their bed count. We started looking at what they go for bed. And we doing the math and we're like, is this real? This is nuts. And that's really where the vision was born and created and really took off from there.
Wow, that's crazy. So obviously you guys with that owner that specifically you guys were talking to about the hostel, did you guys end up buying that hostel specifically, or that was just the observation point that allowed you to continue your search and kind of zone in on the criteria you guys were looking for in a hostel?
Yeah, I'll let Mike answer that one.
Yeah, so you're talking about the first building that we went and looked at.
Right.
It was an apartment building that had previously been operating as a hostel. And it was no longer in service as a hostel, but the listing agent, Better Call Saul, was like picking up that we were interested in this hostel thing. So he started asking us questions. And so we started replying to him, tell us more about the hostel. And so he started selling us on the idea of a hostel. So even though that particular building was no longer, it was off market, it was in escrow, someone had already entered into an agreement to purchase it. That was where the idea started. And so we communicated to this agent, this real estate agent, that, hey, we might be interested in purchasing a hostel. He was persistent. He was just like, what about this one? What about this one? And so that really inspired us. We, like Nathan said, we went and looked at the other hostels on the island. They were run down. There was a lot of deferred maintenance. We said, wow, look, you can buy a property. A lot of these hostels, there's a lot of deferred maintenance so that they're accessible for someone that doesn't have tens of millions of dollars. Like we were able to buy a hostel for relatively cheap. But before we get there, it's important to note the first building that we bought was a commercial building that we intended to convert into a hostel. So we found a property that was properly zoned in Maui that theoretically would have been able to be converted into a hostel. And we had a design team draw up plans. We submitted for permitting. We were moving the ball, although it was taking a little bit longer because the conversion process always takes longer than you would expect with the planning department. And then right in the middle of that, so we ended up buying this commercial retail space. We bought this property, and we, like I said, we were converting it. But right when we're going through this permitting process, COVID hits. And our goal was to obtain a construction loan to remodel and redevelop the property to be suitable for a hostel. It was in operation as a commercial retail building, so there were tenants in place, and they were there occupying it. But we were gonna wipe the place clean and totally convert it. And then when COVID hit, the banks were just like, no, we're hostel shared communal space during COVID. No, this is not going to work. So any opportunity for bank financing dried up at that point. And although that sucked, we ended up getting through that period. That property we still own today, and it is operating as a commercial property. The zoning changed actually within that 2 or 3 year period. The planning department changed zoning, so we can no longer operate that one as a hostel. But we didn't just give up. During COVID, we actually saw an opportunity. I'm going to pass it back to Nathan because I want him to tell the story of how we ended up actually purchasing our first hostel.
Yeah. Oh, can we chime in on that one point? So you guys had the intention of using this as converting into a hostel and doing that whole thing. Didn't really work out. You guys pivoted. You guys adapted, is what I'm hearing. And what I'm noticing also is that, and it's doing well from a cash flow perspective, I'm assuming.
That other property?
The other hostel?
Commercial?
Oh, yeah. Yes, it is
Still
doing
good
very
cash
well.
flow. So did you guys consider that the idea of it not potentially being like option B if it doesn't end up going through permits, or was it just you just went with the flow and then you adapted as things kind of came up?
100%. We always go into a situation with plan B.
Cool.
We always look at the floor and say, look, we have a high tolerance for risk, but worst case scenario, what happens? And in that case, we knew, okay, commercial property in a very popular location in Maui that has a long track record of being in just a valuable location. So worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, we'll operate it as a retail space, which is exactly what we've done.
Yeah. What I've realized is you guys, since the start, just everything that you guys have done has been being adaptable, right? Going to short-term rentals, capping out on that with regulations, adapt, pivot, right? Like you guys have a vision in mind. And I think maybe Nathan, you can speak more on this. You had a vision in mind, but you can also maneuver around the challenges and figure out different strategies that work with what you guys are going through. So I feel that's an important aspect of being successful in life is really focusing on not, for instance, for myself, I'm the visionary, so I went through this idea of I'm going to buy as many short-term rentals as I can, and I did the Burr Stir model. So I renovated these properties and then got them back up on Airbnb. Now the problem was when I bought them undervalued, fixed them up. By the time I was going for the refi, the rates shot up, and I was in the middle of 3 short-term rental projects when that happened. And I remember, just to this day, I hold some of those properties, and they're not cash flowing as much as they would have. But guess what? They're doing okay. I learned what I learned, and I kept buying. And now my recent purchases are doing 100% cash on cash returns, like crazy deals, because I'm learning from my previous. I can't control what the government's going to do and what things are going to happen, but what I can control is like how I maneuver that situation. I feel like that's been similar to you guys, especially during COVID. We're going to get into the hostel, but Nathan, I think that's like your visionary. Right?
Patrick, first of all, I love that you brought that up because most people might not pick up on that. In fact, in our vision, our mission and vision, that's one of our 3 components is pivot. We actually have the word pivot we will pivot based on market conditions. So yes, that is the key. The key is being able to say, hey, this is the vision, this is where we're going. But at the same time, look, we're going to control the controllables that we control. And we're not going to get caught up in, oh, this, and here's where we thought we were going, but now we can't. It's okay, we can't control that. So what can we control, and what direction then can we go? And in fact, since we started the hostel vision, we've added to it now. We're Howzit Hostels, but we are also now created an umbrella over everything called Howzit Hospitality, so that we can purchase and develop a boutique hotel, so we can purchase and develop, turn around a roadside motel, and these other areas of hospitality. Now that we've gone in and gotten experience and understood what there is, now we're like, oh, in the market, why limit ourselves? And yeah, so I love that you brought that up. But the pivot moment for us when COVID was here, we had, at the 11th hour, we were trying to get our property financed. We had hit a lot of resistance with it. Now all of a sudden COVID hits. We're like, oh my gosh. We pulled a minor miracle to get out of our hard money loan into a local lending situation. But now it's COVID, and everything shut down. There's 0 tourism. Hawaii was the last state to open back up, if you remember. So yep. We were locked down. And we were locked down for a long time. And in fact, as a leader, for many years, I had a lot of routine in my life. Hey, I got to win my day first. So I had a 4:30 in the morning, I went down and worked out with somebody that would kick my butt so I could win my day first. And then from there, so I had all of these routines put in place so that I could really be the best version of myself. And then COVID hits, we're locked down, and all of those routines are done and gone. And I'm starting to feel like not good, just depressed. Man, all of these routines and disciplines are gone. We're locked in, like what the heck? And I just said, enough is enough. It's time to compete. And so I started sending out text messages and to my team and to different people. And I'm like, it's time to compete, baby. Let's go. What are you competing with, Nate? Who cares? Myself. Let's go. Let's go get them. So I'm bringing back all of those things that have created success. And I started binge listening to audiobooks and mental mindset, and got my workouts back going, and all of these things I just started doing on my own. So I really put the routine back in. And in that, one of the books that I had read audiobook was Grant Cardone's 10X, right? I'm like, and I think I listened to the introduction, and that's as far as I got, because I'm like, I get the point. Do 10 times as much. All right, 10 times effort. But one of the things that it did say in there, it talked about market conditions. And it said that when market conditions there's negativity in the market, that's when a lot of people pull back. And in fact, when that's occurring, if you can have the courage to actually go 10x in that moment, that's when pay dirt occurs, right? And so that's what we did. Mike and I started looking at all of the things that we learned from the previous property that we had bought. all of the challenges that we faced with the county, all of the zoning things that we learned, all of this, and we recognized, all right, we started printing zoning maps and looking at every property and photographing every building that would fit the mold. And then we're like, look, if we wanted to minimize risk, the best thing to do would actually be to purchase something existing that's already there, that's zoned accurately, there's no change of use, nobody can say anything about. And so we went on a mission. We started literally knocking on doors, and that's where we ended up meeting an existing hostel manager. He got us in contact with the owner, and you can just imagine what that owner's been through. He's owned this place for over 20 years. He's been through it, and old backpackers, tons of deferred maintenance, and now the spigot was turned off. It had been months of not having any revenue, and in the midst of COVID, thinking that we'd come out of it with shared accommodations, like the world at that time was, it's crazy now because we've gotten through it. But if you really go back into that moment, imagine being an owner of a shared accommodation hostel. You're probably not thinking that your business model is very solid. And Mike and I are like, all right, this is our opportunity to really take advantage of the overall situation. And yes, there is risk. But at the end of the day, we already know that it's a commercial building. And if we're wrong and our vision is wrong, we still have a commercial building here on Maui and we'll turn it into, we had a plan B. So we were okay with it. But that was really where that was a big moment for us, going out and attacking while everything was shut down. And we were able to take advantage of that and get an amazing opportunity. And then right as we closed, the island started to open back up, and it was like, holy crap, we don't know anything about this. And the learning started.
That's awesome. Do you have the numbers on what that deal looks like? Like, just for people that are listening, like, how attainable is this for somebody to take down a hostel deal? What were the numbers look like? Which area was it in? Was it near the beach? What were you guys looking for in terms of condition or location, or was there anything particular that you guys had for criteria?
Yeah, actually, because on Maui, there's this SMA's areas that are special management. So when you get close to the ocean, it makes it to get anything accomplished through the county is very difficult. So we actually recognized that, and we said, let's find things that are outside of SMA zones. So this was not SMA zoned. So we were able to go in and purchase the existing hostel that was zoned correctly. And at the time, I think this is something that's really important, that if I could give an actionable item to someone that's negotiating. We purchased, and we now created a relationship with the seller, and instead of us making an offer, what we said that our goal was to do was to create a win for both of us. And that's the truth. Like, we wanted it to be worth it to him, we wanted it to be worth it to us. But we didn't know. I mean, we didn't own a hostel at this point, so we didn't know what it was worth. But we figured, okay, this is probably our numbers. When I went to my wife and I'm like, man, that he's gonna say 3 million. I know he's gonna say 3 million. We went down there, and he gave us a number, and he gave us a number of 1.8. And so we were like, okay. So we negotiated, and we were able to. There was no bank lending at the time, so he seller financed it for 20% down. And we had done some negotiation with them, and so I think we ended up securing it like 1.6 million. And then as we got into the due diligence period, then we recognized, okay, because we hadn't even been in the place at this time. We're just negotiating. We get it under contract, and then we recognize, whoa, there's a lot here. There's a lot for us to have to do to really stabilize this property. And so in that, we were able to negotiate down closer to that $1 million range to purchase this first property because of how much deferred maintenance and challenges there were with the property. And so I can share with you that in 2 years, when we went and got it up and running, we were able to renovate the property with the revenue from the guests, so we never had to close. And in 2 years from us purchasing, we had it reappraised, and it reappraised at that time for 5.1 million. So we went from $1 million to 5.1, leveraged that with a small refi to purchase our second property on the Big Island.
Wow. That's amazing. Yeah. What was the cash flow when you guys bought the place?
Yeah, so the cash flow at the time, it was the numbers that we were given, this was another challenging part. This owner was very protective of all of his information, and it was a challenging negotiation as time went on. It was, if you remember that time, there was just, in that time period, things were really amplified and just emotions were, and so we had to navigate this with very little information. But from a revenue standpoint, his gross revenue that he was bringing in about, I think 670,000 was his kind of record-breaking year. And since then, next year in 2025, we will come very close to hitting the $2 million revenue mark.
Wow, nice. And that's top line revenue, right? That's not net. Or is that net?
That's top line revenue. Yep, that's top line revenue.
Okay, cool. What does the profit margin look like for this kind of business, more or less?
Yeah, we've figured that the way that our business is set up to run, we're not a staff light establishment because we're not just a hostel. We are all about the experience. So if you go and look at our website, howzithostels.com, or our Instagram hostels, you're going to see that we are all about delivering an experience to our guests that is, it's pretty radical. And if you look at that experience, I'll have Mike go into that. But so to answer that, we have about a 35% margin. Some hostels, though, they'd have a higher margin than us, and they could actually operate a smaller, more remote location because they're owner operators and because they're not doing all of the things that we do. So we're not the average hostel, and I think that's important, at least not the average North American hostel. So I think that's important to understand when you think about the way that our numbers are set up.
That's pretty good, though. It's not too bad.
It doesn't suck.
It doesn't suck for not being an owner operator. You're removed from the business at that point. That's pretty nice. Now, what are you guys doing from an experiential standpoint to make this place not your regular hostel? Because from my experience, I went to Thailand. I've been in hostels before. I've stayed in 20 guys to a room. I've seen it all. I've traveled and went hostel when I was younger, and some of them are cool. Some of them are cool, this is just a place to crash. It's really cheap. Some places we had parties and events and stuff. So it was just a wide spectrum of hostels. And maybe the average person might be thinking a hostel, they might not know exactly what that really means. And I guess maybe, Michael, maybe you can allude to the experience that your hostel in particular was able to produce.
Yeah, I really love digging into this part of it because, look, there's a lot of businesses out there where you can make a lot of money, but I feel like there's not as many where you can make a lot of money and also feel really great about doing it. And what we are obsessed with the guest experience. You got to understand, we don't come from a hostel background. People tell us all the time, you guys are not hostel guys. And that is an accurate assessment. I come from the short-term rental market, upscale, luxury end, short-term rental market. That's what my wife and I put a lot of effort into curating this environment where people are going to enjoy these luxurious homes. And a bit of that applies to our hostel. If you go to our website, you're going to be pleasantly surprised because it doesn't resemble the typical stigma of a hostel. A lot of times people associate hostels with some place that's just cheap. And oftentimes owners of traditional hostels, they have maybe a background in that type of accommodation. And there's a lot of advantages of a hostel in terms of the social aspect, but in general, sometimes hostels can be dingy and they can be unkept. And that is not the type of product that we wanted to offer. We knew from the very beginning that we were going to invest into the physical attributes of the property to make it nice. We were going to put in the necessary capital improvements to, create an environment that feels good to be in. And we're not perfect. There's a lot of imperfections about our locations, but we've invested in nice things like beautiful kitchen, beautiful common area. There's pool table, foosball. It's got a stage where we have karaoke night. We've got a bar. The place is killer. It's really nice. And I can go into all the intricacies of the aesthetics, but really the obsession with the guest experience has nothing to do with the physical attributes. It really is about the culture of our staff. Initially, I was very involved in the curation of our guest experience. I was hyper focused on reviews and drilling down into the staff exactly why those reviews matter and what we should be doing in response of those reviews, everything from our guest communication to taking their feedback and implementing it immediately so that ultimately our guests have the best experience possible. And what's important though is that you mentioned we're not owner operators. We went and taught our staff, we created that culture, and now they've embraced it and they run our hostels. I honestly don't even remember the last time I visited the hostel. It's been a couple months now. But I know from the reviews, because I still review them, every time one comes in, I know that they're crushing it. And so the experience really is, it's about making sure that when someone visits our location, that they are greeted with a smile. Everyone is happy to speak with them. We have a core staff, we have part-time staff, and it's just there from the top down, our staff, they just know that these folks coming on vacation, they're not just looking for a cheap place to stay. They're looking for a feeling, a sense of belonging. We might not be the cheapest place. We actually get comments sometimes that, oh, I can find a cheaper place on Airbnb. And that's great. You oftentimes can. But what we're providing is a shared experience. People that come and maybe want the privacy of an Airbnb might not be the best fit for our product. And that's totally okay. But if you're in maybe our target demographic between the ages of, let's say, 20 to 35, and you come to Hawaii, oftentimes these folks don't want to just go and enjoy the beach by themselves. They want to go and meet others and enjoy an experience together. We have not only on-site activities like foosball and a pool and karaoke night and all that I've talked about, but every day we have some sort of an activity. I don't know if it's every day, but many times throughout the week, we take them somewhere together. We have a 15-passenger van. We load them up with a tour guide, and they go snorkeling at some of the best beaches on Maui. Or we drive them along the road to Hana, which, if you're unfamiliar, is this really gorgeous scenic road where you get to check out waterfalls and lush jungle. And so these guys all do this together. They go have this incredible experience, and they come back. And look, they might be staying in a room together, a shared room, but it's not the most glamorous from that perspective, but they're enjoying the company of others, and you can feel it's tangible. I mean, we are obsessed with providing the best experience possible.
That is amazing. And I think that's something that, in the short-term rental space, I think one thing that is trending where I don't really like the space trending towards is the aspect of people are trying to dehumanize the business and make it more operational, especially with AI and all these different aspects coming in, which are supposed to be supplementary to help make it more operationally friendly. But at the same time, this has always been a human business. It's always a people business, right? It's always people are coming to the hostel. They want to see a friendly face. They want to experience connection. I think it's a huge, in-depth human experience. People want to connect. That's what makes us human. And without that element, I think, especially in a world that we live in now, providing that experience is incredible. That's something that people will pay the money for, I believe. But also, I think the fact that you guys are focusing on the human element is why you guys are so successful in what you guys do, because it starts with the staff, it translates into the community, and it translates into what space you guys are providing for that community to interact in. And I think you guys really brought that human element in it. And yes, it's going to cost more money, but I would argue that, and maybe you guys can give me a little more insight on that, but I would argue that would translate to higher value creation for those people that are staying there, AKA you can charge a higher amount for that experience.
Oh, it translates. Yeah, it translates to ADR. Absolutely. All of these little things. I think that Mike he's a huge self-learner, and he's an avid reader, and right at the right time, he read the right book. He read the book Delivering Happiness, which was done by the former CEO of Zappos, and he was reading this book, and he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm reading this book. You got it." And so anytime he recommends something to me, I'll binge listen to it and throw it on. And anyway, I was like, "Holy crap!" And so then we had our leadership listen to it, and it is really all about delivering happiness. We started culturally saying, "What can we go do in this hostel industry that is known for the absolute minimum how can we go and provide the maximum? And so from developing things like he talked about how in the beginning operationally he was really obsessed over this, creating this experience. 3 days prior to anybody coming, they get an aloha call from us, from a human being. So we're calling and we're saying, hey, aloha, we're so stoked to have you. If there's anything you need, let us know. Those are the little things that they just don't happen today in today's world. And that connection piece, you're right. In the market as a whole, if you look at the hospitality market, there's 3 areas of organic growth that as we move forward in studies that have been done. And the organic growth is coming from experiential stays, solo travel, and solo female travel. And so we recognize these as great areas of opportunity for our specific business model to really go out there and say, experience all of this, the young generation, they're very obviously, everything is about that dang phone. And the connection, they may show that they're connected to hundreds of thousands of people, but the reality is that true human connection is a piece that's missing in their life. We know that, and we want to provide that, and we want to create that balance for them. Number one, they can come and stay with us, and they know they're going to go out into this island and get the most Instagrammable moments that exist, but at the same time, they're going to have the authentic human connection that they're craving and that they're missing. And in fulfilling that, they're going to be incredibly grateful. They're going to write the reviews. And then ultimately, that leads to us being able to make up for that in our ADR.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question. How do you even quantify that? Especially when you guys were comping it out, when you guys decided to make the investment into the property, did you guys know directly to how much that was going to add in ADR? Because you could look at another hostel that doesn't really have that human element, and you guys created something special within the space. How do you even comp that? How do you even understand from a numbers perspective what it's going to make, or did you not?
First of all, we didn't. I'll just be just absolutely transparent. Our goal in the beginning was we didn't know. We wanted to develop our prototype on Maui. Mike said it all along. Hey, let's go develop a prototype with the systems and processes in place. And we didn't know how they were going to translate. But what we had a very strong intuitive feeling is if we did the right things, right? Where other people might sacrifice and maybe not make that investment, or maybe not do that, or maybe not provide that guest interaction, or whatever it was along the way, we said, look, to start, let's go do it. Let's go develop it. And then we will learn from that. And what we learned along the way is that in 2.5 years, non-hostel guys were awarded with the best small hostel in North America. So we were doing the right things, and now we have that badge of honor. That's okay. Let's go live up to that on a daily basis. But in doing that, we've almost doubled our ADR from when we purchased the property. So now we know, yes, we've done the right things. The reviews speak for themselves, and people are willing. That is what they want when they make their decision. And frankly, it's the clientele that we want. Because we've been able to increase the ADRs, we're also cutting out a certain percentage of people that maybe wouldn't be the best fit to stay with us or wouldn't contribute in the most positive way. So look, the other hostels on Maui, that's okay. They'll take those. They're okay with those guests. But for us, we have a very specific experience that we're looking to provide, and we've been able to accomplish that.
That's amazing. And I love that. And so now, obviously, you guys have big dreams and big goals for the future of what you guys are working on. You guys got your second hostel as well outside of Maui. And then you guys are also looking to scale this concept. And it's interesting because have you ever read the Blue Ocean Strategy?
No.
Okay, so it's an interesting book because it seems like your background was in hostel, but the fact that you guys have this experience in your world and being able to mold it with the world of the hostel world, it gives a new perspective on that world where you guys can create a unique product that nobody else was able to create. And that's called, like, the Blue Ocean Strategy is basically creating new markets that other people don't think are there by combining two different aspects of different world or industries, essentially. An example of this is even like the lean startup method. It was an inspiration through lean manufacturing, bringing that into the startup world and say, wait, we can actually create products through a minimal viable product instead of going full production. Let's just do something that proves the market. And so I think you guys did hostels where you guys brought inspiration from other industries and brought it into the hostel world and creating a product that other people were not able to create. And I think that's really cool. But with this new product, it's a proven concept now. You made that investment, you made that into personnel and whatnot to create this experience. It's working. You did a second time. What's the goal for how it's like? What are you guys trying to really create now?
Yeah, we want to grow. We want to scale. We have made it our goal in 2024 to level up. So we've joined some mastermind groups. We are trying to network as much as we can. Nathan talked about our prototype vision. That was the goal initially, right? To invest into this product to prove the concept. And really, I think we're early adopters in the US in a sense, but this model has existed for many decades prior in Europe. We're just introducing a higher level of accommodations. And I liken it a lot to the Airbnb model. Before Airbnb, short-term rentals existed. But what Airbnb did is they went out and said, look, we're going to hire professional photographers originally in the early days, right? When you signed up for Airbnb, they supplied you, I believe free of cost or at a nominal cost, a professional photographer that would come in and stage your short-term rental and make it look nice and take photos. So this way, when you looked online as a guest, you're like, wow, this actually looks really comforting and nice and appealing. We're doing something similar. We are taking, in a lot of ways, we're emulating what's already available in Europe with some of these higher end design-friendly hostels. There's a few companies out there that have had tremendous success. We're talking, these are like billion-dollar companies that are operating in the hostel space. And we're just applying a lot of those principles to what we're doing. And our goal there is to scale similar to what they've done in Europe. So we wanted to build a prototype that was not only really appealing for our guests, but also could demonstrate to potential investors that, look, we're competent operators. We know what we're doing. We're providing a great experience. It's tangible. You can see it on our website. You can visit our location. You know that we have the ability to take this concept and scale it now across the United States and potentially elsewhere. Hostels are growing. They're growing not just in the US, but throughout Asia, throughout South America. There's a huge market for this. And a lot of this also, I feel, is in alignment with just the sharing economy in general, with Uber, and there's co-living spaces now. Just the shared economy, people are more open and receptive to the idea of sharing a space. It's not as a taboo thought as it once was maybe a decade ago. So we feel like we're at the right time to offer a more high quality, superior product. And we feel that we can go and raise capital, we can scale, we can drop these hostels in high density urban locations or otherwise vacation destinations that have high traffic. And we can do really well because from a operating perspective, the margins are incredible. Relative to hotels and things, we can really maximize profit margin. And depending if we have time to get into it, we're happy to walk through that. But we really feel like this is a sound business model.
This is incredible. And so
yeah, and I think
go
Mike,
on,
just to
Nathan.
one piece on what you said that's really important. So typically, if you look at a hostel or otherwise known as youth hostel, because typically that is our 75% of our demographic is under 30, right? But if you think about the mindset of that group of individuals over the past 10 years, they've been exposed to a very different life than those that are older than them. They've grown up with Airbnb, staying in rooms, Uber, all of co-living spaces. For all of them, they're not having to get through the stigma because they've grown up in a different world, in a different environment. And it's just from a timing standpoint, sometimes, timing is everything. And that's what we've found, that our timing in the US, there's more hotels in the US than any other country in the world. But yet hostels, the US doesn't even crack the top 15. There's only 309 hostels in the US. There's over 100,000 hotels. There's a market here that is really ready for this concept to grow and to scale. And part of it has to do with the work that short-term rentals, Airbnb, Uber, co-living spaces. From a timing standpoint, we believe we're at the right place at the right time.
You know what's really interesting? You guys, I'm like nodding my head as you guys are like, yeah, the generation under 30. And it's actually funny because I'm under 30. So you guys are talking about me. But yeah, no, I agree though, because me growing up, we're automatically super trusting of people in cars, right? Like we will go into a stranger's car to drive us across town. That was our whole lives. We were trusting like that. We are trusting to stay in people's places. We are trusting of a lot of things that maybe the generation before us wasn't as trusting of. And I don't know if that's a bad thing, but I think it's one of those things where that's where the world's going. And I think I love the concept. And I feel like when you cater to the generation, it's just smart from an investment standpoint to cater to the generation that's going to the younger generation, because those are the people that are going to be your lifetime value as a customer for this asset class, right? So
Exactly.
you would want to target them, even though maybe in the meantime they don't have as much capital as somebody like a millennial, for instance. But the fact that you can potentially even down the line, like as you start getting full W-2 jobs, as you start scaling in their organizations and their businesses and whatever they're doing, they're going to continue to spend in these areas.
I love that you brought up the life cycle of the brand. We recently just hired a CMO, and he introduced this concept to us, which we hadn't really put together on our own yet. And so we're still brainstorming exactly how we're going to develop this. But similar to what you've described, it's look, we've got different product lines that we ultimately want to develop into. We've got our hostel brand, which is a great introduction as a youth hostel. But Howzit Hospitality, as we grow and we apply our experience with what we've learned from our hostels into boutique hotels and perhaps into resorts, we've got a big vision to grow and to scale this to be a $400 million company. We know there's a lot of opportunity to apply what we're learning now into a wider range of applications. And so the life cycle might be, they might be, hey, let's start with Howzit Hostels, and then it could be we'll graduate into Howzit Hotels or whatever we brand it as. And we might have boutique hotels, we might have more experiential resorts, whatever it may be, but we're curating this brand, and the generation that are using our hostels might ultimately grow into the generation that stays at our family-friendly resorts.
That's incredible. I love that. And wrapping it up, I do want to get into the last couple questions here. The first one is, and I think we alluded to this a few times, but what educational book, podcast, platform, website, resource was most instrumental to your journey? It doesn't have to be about hostels or real estate, just in general.
I'll jump in here on myself. So when I was a 20-year-old kid reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I hear this, it's pretty consistent, but it gave me the confidence to, number one, it was the first financial education that I ever received outside of just going through life. And I don't know why we don't teach our kids in our high school level, like, about money, but just having that gave me confidence in life to go and attack being an entrepreneur and becoming the best version of myself. So that was big. Tony Robbins had a huge influence in my life as far as vision development goes and behavioral changes and understanding people. So I did an Unleash the Power Within decades ago, a long time ago, and it really shaped a lot of the way that I see things and the way that I look at limiting beliefs and obstacles, which has had just a massive effect on me. Thought Vibrations was next. I started recognizing that the discipline of my thoughts, that my beliefs are the strongest form of thought. And so I needed to be really careful about creating disciplines around that so that I could manifest my vision. And then since then, Mike has really helped shape our company with a couple of key books. We talked about delivering happiness with obsessing over the guest experience and creating wow moments. That was huge. And then for our scaling business, Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell has been instrumental in the shaping of this next step. So I probably took all of Mike's stuff right there, but
no, I love it. I'm
journey.
laughing because it's like, what book? And he rattled off like 5 or 6 different books. But
I was like,
I was having the same
said one
thought.
book, Nathan. I said one book. All right,
I'm
you didn't
sorry.
have to freaking steal the show. Michael's
That's
like
still
running
fine.
out of ideas. Like,
I was struggling because I was going through the same thing in my head. I was like, man, I read a lot. I love reading. I've read so many great books. So to ask me, like, what book would you recommend or has shaped your life? That's such a hard question because I've read so many great ones. but I'll go back in time and then I'll move forward a little bit. One of the first books that really had an impact on me was The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. For me, I really wanted to create a lifestyle that allowed me to control my time. My time is invaluable. It's the most important thing, and how I am able to control my time, I get to choose who I get to spend it with. So instead of a job controlling my time, creating a lifestyle where I get to control it and be able to put processes in place that allow me more freedom, that book had a profound impression on me. And then the other book that, as an entrepreneur, that I use to just provide some comfort and some solace in times that can be challenging is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight.
Oh, that's a good one.
If you haven't read that book and you're an entrepreneur, there's just so many relatable stories in there and anecdotes to help get you through the dark times.
I love that book. Cool. Next question. I think we already went through just in general, like future of where you guys are headed. So we can skip over that real quick. But I do want to ask about just a special question for you two. Let's say that I like to think of just not having limitations on resources and what people would creatively create. So if resources weren't an issue, you can create a hostel experience anywhere in the world, do whatever you want. And what would that look like? What would that vision, like that big time vision, look like without limitations on resources?
That's a good
Never asked
question.
us that before.
Yeah, that's a good question. When I look at our team sends out Instagram moments constantly, and when I look at the experiences that we create, they're really life-changing. They really are. Like, I think about the people that are living that experience, and I'm like, man, they are truly life-changing. So if we're being specific to our hostel vision, to imagine us being global and having over 4,000 beds, that on just a daily basis, we have 4,000 to 8,000 people on a daily basis that are being impacted in that same way that our Instagram captures, where these experiences that the youth are having are going to be with them for the rest of their life. People are out there meeting their spouses. It's nuts what's happening. So I think if we look at a really big picture, if resources are not an issue, to be able to really scale that where the guest experience is really the most important thing, and we're able to provide that true experience of the region that they're in, where they get a true sense of the place that they're at, the culture that they're at, and then they take that with them and then carry that with them as one of the top memories in their life forever. That ultimately that's the most important thing to me.
That's amazing. So where would that be, Nathan? What are you envisioning in your head? Is this South Africa? Is this New Zealand? Is this Europe? Is this Maui?
Yeah, I think that if we took the top travel destinations just in the US to start, that any of the top travel destinations, whether it's Los Angeles, San Francisco, Seattle on the West Coast, whether it's on the East Coast, Washington, D.C., Miami, some of these travel destinations where they're just maybe the presence isn't exactly what we want, Austin, Texas. But then globally, yeah, to be in, just thinking about being in the south of France and Italy and the Mediterranean, where we can really have an impact on lives. I don't see it, when I close my eyes and envision that, it's not limited to a specific place. It's more of a broad vision.
Amazing. I love it. Mike, are you aligned with that?
I am, but I want to pivot a little bit in my vision. I'm not limited to just hostels. And so for me, when I think about some of the most some just world-class resorts where if resources are no issue and you can spend unlimited amounts, I love the idea of walking into a resort and the way that the architecture and the design, it has the way it makes you feel like you're enlivened, you're impressed, but you're experiencing like, wow, this is majestic. To be able to go and create something like that and to leave that legacy for generations to enjoy, man, if I could do that, yes, let's do that. That sounds amazing.
Guaranteed.
I love that.
It's
And
done.
I think I just exercise this all the time because I like to see what that optimal experience would look like so then I can backtrack and be like, all right, how can we at least shoot for the stars, but at least land on the moon, right? Let's create something, a resemblance of that, right? And you guys, I feel, are doing it with Howzit. Good for you guys. But anyways, last question, what is like a way for other people to actually get in touch with you guys? Let's say they want to either ask you guys questions about Howzit or the hostel world, and or want to maybe invest or partner up with you guys. How can they reach you guys?
Yeah. So to start, visit our website, howzithostels.com. You can also reach us on Instagram. We have one for our hostel brand, but we also have Mike and Nate, the hostel guys, on Instagram. And for our investment arm, we have vortexmaui.com. You can visit that website and contact us there as well.
That's amazing. And thanks so much, guys, for hopping on, sharing exactly what it is, unfiltered, ready to go. I love the vision, and I'm rooting for you guys in the sidelines. But I appreciate you guys for just sharing everything throughout the whole pod. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Patrick.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to the Patrick Real Estate Show. If you found this episode helpful, please give us a follow and leave us a 5-star review. Your support truly means a lot. And connect with Patrick in the show notes below. Until next time.